Good morning, guys. My name is Simon Lukuya, Chairman of Marriage Powerhouse Network, which is an NGO. We focus on families. We had a seminar which looked at mental health in relationships and marriages on the 23rd of July. We had a power-packed number of speakers, guys that really shared their heart out on this subject of mental health and how it affects relationships, marriages, and even relationships between your children, and yourself as a parent. Our first speaker was Kutlwano Mnesi, she's a clinical psychologist, and she is also a PhD candidate. She delved too much on all aspects of mental health, and the time was limited. However, she really shared what is groundbreaking for most families. We also had Bongani Ngomani from the Department of Social Development in Gauteng, who's also the chairman of the Men's Forum in Gauteng, who spoke about men's mental health. Now, with the current GBV that is taking place, it's very important to understand what affects men, their egos and all those things. The third speaker was Mr. Tsieti Telite, who's an Enneagram practitioner, who spoke about types of relationship, types of personalities and how they affect the relationships. And the last one was Apostle Cools, who spoke on spirituality and mental health. Let us listen to Kutlwano, who defined what mental health is and what are the signs of mental health. Thank you.
As we've already discussed, signs and symptoms may create confusion and frustration. So it can place strain on the other partner, as they would have to take on all the family responsibilities for the sake of their better health. So this is seen especially in cases where perhaps the wife or the mother is the one that's experiencing mental health issues, and you find that she's unable to cook, she's unable to clean, she's unable to care for the kids, she's unable to function as she would normally. And then you find the husband taking over all those responsibilities and therefore putting strain on him as a person. And then there would be this compromise. And I think codependency, we'll talk about it a bit later, but there might be this over compromise that the husband does, and then it might lead to actually feelings of resentment. Okay, so let me jump to the next slide. So what you see also with mental health issues is in a couple situation, there might be increased negative talk. So let me just touch on the negative talk and just explain how it plays out. So sometimes the person with the mental health problem might have increased negative talk about themselves. And then when they're all tried out in terms of the negative talk about themselves, it could translate into negative talk about the relationship as a whole, and then negative talk about the partner. And this may lead to belittling one another. So when the other partner hears, okay, my wife or my girlfriend or my fiance is actually belittling me, they're also going to retaliate because of the lack of knowledge and the lack of understanding regarding what mental health really is about. And then you see that partners with mental health issues may project their feelings of inadequacy, their low self-esteem, or their performance anxiety onto their better half. So what you see in cases like this is that, they can't help but do it. They feel like, okay, you feel like I'm ugly, and I know I'm ugly, and I see how you look at me, so you must know that I'm ugly. This is the low self-esteem actually talking and being projected. And then feelings of inadequacy might come as, okay, you don't really see me. You feel like I can't do anything. You feel like I can't take care of myself. And it's mainly a projection of the person feeling inadequate themselves. They're feeling like, I'm not good enough, and then they project it onto the other partner. And when you talk about performance and anxiety, it's because they already know that there's not much that they can do. Like they struggle with house chores, for example. They struggle with having sex, intimacy, for example. So they might already have this anxiety about, oh my goodness, my husband is coming back home, or Bay is coming back home, I need to clean. And this might actually increase anxiety because they're not doing it from their ability, but they're doing it from fear. And anxiety is just that. It's like intense fear that is unmanaged. So for both partners, mental health issues may result in decreased bonding, and it could lead to unmet needs. Okay, I think this ties in together most of the things that I've spoken about already. So a partner with mental health conditions may have limited emotional availability. It might make the other partner to feel rejected, disconnected, and disappointed. And then an increased pattern of codependency, which is an unhealthy relationship pattern, might occur. So what codependency is, and I think if any of you want to know about it further, you can ask about it, but it's actually a pattern or a behavior of enabling the mental health illness or poor coping mechanisms of your partner. So what you do is you could end up actually encouraging that behavior by being there. Obviously you have to be there, but you might define that space, that space as you have to be there. You are weak and I have to be your strength, and just keep enabling that behavior. In turn, the person with mental health condition might feel empowered and might feel or derive this as actually self-worth. They might get self-worth from this codependency relationship. And if the pattern continues, it could get to extreme cases of abuse, for example, name calling, and other unhealthy dynamics. But we will discuss this further if it's an interest in any of the questions. Okay, so without a waste of time, I want to move on to the helpful nuggets. But before that, I just want to tie in something. I'm sure you've already noticed that there is a huge impact with regards to mental health problems and how they affect intimate relationships. So I just want you to just imagine if that is the dynamic of husband and wife, or if that's the dynamic of partners and they have children. Imagine then the impact of that unhealthy cycle on the kids. These are children that you find they can develop conversion disorders. For example, they can start fainting for just the sake of attention, because when they faint, mom and dad have a peaceful night. They don't fight anymore. Or they can develop depression because they can withdraw and start being in their room a lot, not talk to you anymore. And this may lead to depression. Or they may develop anxiety, maybe because of anger outbursts. And, this may create unhealthy fear in a child, which may result in anxiety, like I said. So there's a lot of things that can actually cause mental health problems for the children as well within families. Okay, so this is actually my last slide. So I'm actually honing in everything. So I'm going to give you nuggets. So the nuggets for partners is the number one thing: educate yourself. You need to be open about learning more about mental health together. If you see these signs and symptoms from your partner, sit down and talk about what's happening. And practice communicating openly and honestly about your feelings, your needs, and your concerns. Commit to self-care. You cannot take care of other people if you are not taken care of. So you need to take care of yourself. You can't give from an empty tank. So you need to refill. And how do you do that? You take care of your physical expectations. So don't make demands for your partner to change who they are or don't expect them to meet all your needs always, because that's impossible. Both of you should not violate your boundaries. And thank you so much. That is all I have for you today.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Mnis. You really unpacked this, so much. I've learned a lot. They always say that a man is always very reserved. We don't talk that much. And even if we have problems, some of them, it can be financial. Some of them can be, maybe I am no longer feeling, my libido is decreased. And the only way to cover that is me being very abusive. Is there a correlation between a feeling of inadequacy and gender-based violence as is, or a feeling of inferiority or versus gender-based violence? Thank you.
Absolutely, Simon. That's actually a great. I think someone must research that. Hey, it's a great topic. Yes, absolutely. Because if you can look at inferiority complex and you study it, you'll see that a lot of the times it's suffered by men, and the way that they do is they start overcompensating for this inferiority complex in other areas. So others become verbally aggressive, others become physically abusive and aggressive, and then others start, maybe they become promiscuous and they seek out validation from other areas of their life. So this is ways to overcompensate this inferiority and feelings of inadequacy. Yeah, so there is a relationship.
Would you say every person suffers from some sort of mental health? Looking at the signs and symptoms.
Yeah, I think that's why in the presentation I did write that for me, mental health is on a continuum. And I think it's because everyone in their lifetime experiences one or two or even more of these signs and symptoms. And at some point, what differentiates you from getting a diagnosis, let's say, is and being on medication is the way that you manage all these things. So yes, in my years of experience, but I say that there was 1 or 2 weeks where I struggled with insomnia. Absolutely. Did I find a way to manage it? Yes, I practice sleep hygiene. So it's different for every person. Other people find that they cannot manage their signs and symptoms, and this is where actually we say, okay, this is a disorder. So we don't label it as a disorder if it's managed well. If it's unmanaged and you are actually unable to cope, like for example, everybody experiences anxiety, right? When you have a big presentation or you have a big exam to write, you experience anxiety and you're anxious about it. You want to do well. But how you manage it differentiates you from someone who actually has the disorder and is on medication and needs to be on the medication to actually help them to manage that condition. Okay, so absolutely, yes.
How soon does one engage a third party to help? When we look at signs and symptoms, these seem real common. I think that's very critical. How soon, if I realize that there's a problem in the house between us, or you also feeling, when we talk about third parties, it means it's two people involved. How soon do we get a third party involved? At what point do we get a third party to be involved?
And that's a very good question, actually. Hey, because other people see signs and symptoms and they run to the psychologist. I mean, even doctors do that. You find in hospital, they see a sign, and then they call the psychologist, come quick, this person is crying, and they can't stop crying. I don't think that for every single sign and symptom you need to run to a psychologist. I think that everybody innately has the ability to cope and to deal with whatever they're faced with. It's when you are unable to actually manage and to cope, then you need to involve the psychologist, the third party, as you would say, whether it be someone at church or whether it be a professional as myself. It's really up to you. It's your choice. But honestly speaking, if you feel like you had a conflict with your wife and you resolved it well, then kudos to you. But if you feel like, okay, you're having a conflict, it's unresolved, you have another one, it's unresolved, and you continuously have unresolved conflict, and then it leads to signs and symptoms that aren't managed, and you can't contain your emotions anymore, I would say that, okay, I think that this is time for you to contact someone and get that added external help.
Yeah, okay. The next question from Mrs. Telite is, any advice on how to start a conversation with a child going through mental health?
Okay. So this child going through mental health, depending on what their signs and symptoms are, they just need someone to sit down and listen. Okay. So I found that when I do parental guidance, parents are actually surprised when I say, well, your child feels like they're not listened to. And they're like, but I listen to my child all the time. And then it's not that kind of listening. It's the empathic kind of listening that you need to practice, the attentive one, where you actually sit down and you say, okay, I'm here, not only as a parent, but you know what, as someone who really cares about your mental well-being. And I've noticed this and this and this. And I'm wondering, would you like to share? It will remain between us. And if I see that you need help, I will reach out to someone who can help. Are you willing to share? Usually children are very open if they feel like they are in a non-judgmental space. If they feel like the minute you tell them that, I've been cutting myself on my thighs, and I feel like killing myself because last week I took pills from your cabinet, and the first thing you say is cease, or your reaction is bad, then that child is never going to trust you again. Mm-hmm. So honestly speaking, you need to go down to the level of children. What I normally do is I tell parents, I'm like, sometimes if your child is shorter than you, just either sit down on the chair with your child, or if they're toddlers, kneel down on your knees so that you can have that connection, and then you're not intimidating for your child, and give them a chance to talk and themselves without any judgment.
My question was around accessibility in terms of therapy in society in general. Do you have maybe a range cost of what it would cost for, let's say, an adult to get one therapy session? And do you think, when I speak accessibility, I'm basically speaking, do you think it's affordable to communities and different societies, across the board in South Africa?
Thank you, Debbie. Actually, we do have a lot of psychologists in government, and most of them are free. You don't have to pay a cent. You just need to find out from your local clinic in which institution do they have a clinical psychologist available who will be at your service. In private practice, the rates mainly differ, because mostly it's private, it's medical aid rates, and then the practitioner will make their rates similar to the medical aid, and sometimes negotiate with regards to the needs of their target population. So I think it differs. There are, platforms like Sight they have online services where you pay 500 for a session and you get the full hour. So there are services like that, you know. And then there's free services also. I think that most people are aware about other medical health services that you get online, that you can call, like SADAG. You can call SADAG and have like a session there with them if you're really struggling, and they will refer you to the nearest public institution where you can go to get services. So there is actually a lot of places where you can go. Depending on where you are, just find out in your area if there's a government hospital, go to the government hospital and find out if there's psychologists available.
Sometimes we as parents, we want to seem like strong and seem like we do not have any weaknesses, and we want to appear good, as if we're like very strong, invulnerable, and without any mistakes to our children, to our own detriment.
Well, absolutely, Simon. You know, I think we need to realize that also society is moving in a different direction right now in terms of the generation that comes after us, and that generation is different. It's the communication generation, and they need to be communicated to, but they need to also be allowed to communicate back. So I think that when you are a parent and you communicate openly, that shows that, okay, you are also human, and you know, you don't have it all together. And it's very important to also understand that your kids are different. Hey, I've got two of my own, and I realize that they're two different personalities, and you cannot parent the same for two different personalities. You need to understand each child for who they are and parent at their level, at each child's level. So I think sometimes we fail because we come with our own experience, and you know, we were raised to not talk back. We were raised to not even mention when we're going through a lot. We can't say, if you know, our parents said something hurtful, we can't say, you know, what you said hurt me. But in this generation, we have to now change the script and allow them to say, well, I felt hurt when you said this and this to me, and you know, it made me want to kill myself for whatever reason. And we must also be able and open to say, you know, but I'm sorry I did that. You know, I wasn't thinking straight, and because beating them up makes them learn that communication, aggressive communication is okay, and then they take it up to their peers, and then from their peers, you know, you're always called at school, your child is fighting, you shout at your child, why are you fighting at school? But it's because this is the communication at home, you know. So we need to learn how to communicate effectively in a way that allows our children to understand us and allows us to understand them.
Yeah, not true. I see Mkaya, if you can come in with your comment as one of the panelists on your comment on the chat box.
Greetings. The comment that I was making was in relations to us as parents being truthful to our feelings. I might touch it on when I present, but again, it is imperative, especially when you are going through maybe issues that are touching emotional being as a parent. For you to be able to be honest to your child and say, this is how I feel at the present moment. The children that we have nowadays is that they are able to pick up feelings. And that is also helping them when they are going to school, because when they get to school, if they are going to school with a negative vibe, what happens is that it also impacts the way they will behave at school on that day. So in whatever that we go through, let us create a behavior in our families that we are able to trust our children, that we can sit with them and discuss the emotional challenges that we are going through. And in that way, we will be building healthy families. I will stop there.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, that's very true. That's very true. And Gwanda Piri says, the first step towards seeking help for any problem is admitting one has a problem. History has shown that particularly men are not as well receiving of healthcare as women are. Please advise on how to go about assisting someone towards the realization that they do need help without actually pushing them away or even offending them in any way. Any comment on that? So Amatota, they don't want, in fact, can I say something? I went to a specialist and this specialist said, you know what? It was a male urologist, and he said, urologists are the poorest because they are not like gynecologists. Women, whenever they feel like they're unhealthy, they go straight to the doctor. And but men don't. But that is the same as well with mental health. Men they can't say if they are feeling okay, they are not feeling okay, they can immediately go and seek immediate help. They want to keep it. So what Gwanda is saying is, how do you advise someone to seek help without offending them?
I think we need to challenge the status quo. The status quo is that, men don't cry, men shouldn't seek mental health. And there's this notion that comes with mental health that stigmatizes it as a bad thing. So most people believe being mentally ill means that you are psychotic, which is hearing voices, picking up papers, eating this, eating that, and you're not in your cognitive state. So I think the first thing would be to destigmatize mental health, and when you communicate to your fellow brother, saying things like, I've also experienced signs like this and that. I've always found a way to manage them, and maybe you can also find strength to manage these things, maybe from a therapist, or maybe let's go to Mfundisi, or maybe let's go to whoever can help us actually help you to become better. I think the whole point is to destigmatize, because mental health issues have been stigmatized so much, and I think it's difficult for men because women are usually outspoken. They're able to say, I'm not feeling well, and they're able to seek out the help that they need, like you said, Simon. But with men, they must be really like in the deep for them to actually seek out the help. So we need to actually reach out more to men to say, listen, you also need to take care of yourself, because you also matter. And so forth. Ironically, last year I was working in the public sector and most of my patients were male, ironically. So you see how much men actually do need services. It's just that I think we need to make it known and challenge the status quo and make them realize that it does not make you weak to actually seek help. It actually shows that you are self-aware, you are insightful, and that you actually care about yourself.
It's okay to use tough love to force change to someone who is going through a certain phase because of a divorce, and that resulted that the person is abusing alcohol, and that affect her performance. On Kwebi's question of accessibility, I don't think it is easily accessible. I hear and understand you, Kutlwano, but looking at the database, these free services are not there in our community, especially in rural areas. I have volunteered at SADC as well, and I've seen their database. It is very limited. Government is not doing much for our communities. It is the truth and said. No awareness, no help for most communities. I still believe the most vulnerable are not getting the help they need.
I think to be honest, I think in the rural areas, people only go there during ComServe. And that's why I said no, but there is accessibility, because in ComServe, well, they are there for a year, but they change, so they make sure, the government makes sure that there's always someone there. Unfortunately, with placements, some people don't choose certain rural areas, and mainly it's because most of the people want to be closer to home. Other people feel like being in a complete new space, and it's a rural area, might diminish a lot of their lived experiences. And I think that when it comes to the rural areas, for sure, the government is failing us there. I think there should be facilities, better facilities, in fact, of everything. Education, hospitals should be better, mental health care should be accessible, and so forth. I think one of the ethical things that we once discussed was, when they say in the law, when they say, well, it's all accessible, well, mental health and medical care is accessible to all. Are they really considering every person? And in this case, I don't think they are, because they will tell you about resources. And I don't think we actually need that much resources to talk. We just need a person to come in and let's just talk. But I think the budget, they'll tell you about the budget and things like that, and expenses. But most of the main, if you look in Soweto, there's a hospital there. In Tembisa, the hospital there is a psychologist. In Gauteng, there's a lot of clinics with psychologists. In Pretoria, there's George Mukari. It has a lot of psychologists. There's also some clinics in Pretoria that do have a psychologist. If you look at Mpumalanga, the hospital there in Witbank has a psychologist. So they do try to make sure that public hospitals do have psychologists. I think that maybe SADC has a small database with regards to who they are associated with, because that could also be the issue. So there is quite places where you can go, but I think the fact that in rural areas there's a shortage, that is a big problem, and it will probably remain a problem for many years to come.
No, thank you, Kutlwano. I think we have, I don't know about attendees, colleagues and friends. I think this was very informative, and I believe that we have learned a lot, and I think the engagement will continue.
Mr. Ngomane is our next speaker. He is a visionary born in Zakane. He matriculated from Johannesburg Robin Hood College. He holds a BA degree from UKZN and a BA honors degree from the University of Stellenbosch. He then also continued to study, and he holds a master's in new venture creation and entrepreneurship from Wits Business School. He currently works for the Gauteng Department of Social Development as a chief director, and he's also a founding member of the Social Development Men's Forum and a chairperson of SA Men's Awards. He's a pioneer in men's movement in South Africa, and he's incredibly passionate about issues concerning leadership, social justice, as well as wealth creation. Mr. Ngomane, welcome, and you can take stage.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks a lot for that introduction. And thanks a lot to Brother Simon for hosting me. Unfortunately, I'm not able to upload my presentation because now I had to to link using, I had to connect using somebody's gadget. But be it as it may, I'm not sure, Chair, whether I must switch on my video off.
I think continue to speak with your video on so that they can see that it's a human being speaking. It's not a machine.
All right. No, perfect. Thanks. I will not really be long. What I have done, I am going to reflect on the effects of mental health to men. But before I do that, I want to contextualize South African men. So I've said we must look into South African men in context. Firstly, we need to know that we've got the population of South Africa, it's about 59 million, and of which 49% of that 59 million consist of men. And the life expectancy of South African men is very low, if it's to be compared with that of women. So SA men are expected to live 6 years lesser than women generally. And when it comes now to issues of mental health, you will see that mostly it is women, according to many academic and scientific researches, it is women who are mostly suffering from mental health. But few of them are affected to an extent that they end up considering suicide. This is due to the fact that when women are not well, they talk and they approach doctors, they seek help. But South African men who are affected by mental health, most of them, they end up being depressed, they commit suicide, and they end up being a problem to the society. In 2016, there was a study that was conducted, and the study reported that about 13,000 people in South Africa committed suicide, 13,700. And out of that, 10,861 were men who committed suicide. So it tells you that the number of suicide among men is very, very high. And, the question is why really most men are suffering from this. First, it's that South African men, they've got a strong feeling of social exclusion. They feel excluded from the society. They don't feel as part of the greater whole of the society. And mostly they suffer depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and schizophrenia. And these mental illness, normally they will manifest in a form of anger, stress, violence, reckless living, and even abuse of alcohol. And I'm sure most people will know that in a way these factors are a common character of South African. Then, if you are to check these causes, you'll find that the majority who are suffering from trauma, it's due to exposure to violence. Normally, this violence is committed by men against men. And too much exposure or abuse of alcohol. And this also results into accidents, car accidents, and adding to trauma and adding to more problems. But also the socio-economic issues are playing their factors, especially when it comes to the social transformation that South Africa has experienced in the past few years, where patriarchy was systematically broken down and deliberately broken down by the system. Most men got confused as their role changed in the society and their status. And that is where the element of social exclusion came in. So the impact of these mental health issues for men, especially the negative one, the impact, it's in respect of in families, in relationships, in marriages, the impact is such that it leads to divorces. It leads to gender-based violence and even femicide. And it leads to emotional and financial abuse. So we can see that issues of mental health on men are a great problem to families, to relationships, and to marriages. So we proposing possible interventions here from the men's movement. And we are saying men need to be part of groups. They need to form men's groups or men's forums where they will be able to have a safe space to talk among themselves, to communicate, to engage, and to seek advices from others. And we know that others may be professionals who are part of those groups, maybe a male psychologist or counselors. But also they need to be empowered on issues of emotional intelligence so that they can understand themselves and their environment and know how best to handle any form of stress. And of course, we also recommend medical treatment because the severity of the problem will determine the nature of treatment one can get. So in brief, we are saying men must be encouraged to talk, they must seek help, and we must destigmatize issues of men's health, especially when it comes to mental health. I want to close by saying we need to seriously consider imposing quotas on training of health and social welfare workers, gender quotas. We need to say, for an example, if University of Vets has got a space for 300 students enrolled, 100 should be men. So that then men are encouraged to be part of this health and welfare sector. They are encouraged to influence even the curriculum, the presentation of the curriculum, and they are able to assist other men. That way, we hope the element of destigmatization will be starting to happen, because we've got very few professionals in this space, resulting in very few men having interest or understanding issues of mental health. For now, I would like to pause there, Chair, and if possibly allow for discussion. Thank you.
I think there's commonality between what Okutlwana said about the destigmatization of mental health and the fact that men don't talk, they keep quiet, and I think the presentation, please, Shiga, if you can email it to us so that we can have it, because you're raising a couple of issues that man-to-man violence lead to a violent nature of man, even in their own families. The socio-economic issues, patriarchy. I've always said that as men, we have not come to understand the issue of transformation when it comes to breaking down patriarchy. We still want women to continue in the traditional roles of housewives. And when a woman is appointed as your boss, it's like it's an insult to manhood, and you respond in violence, or even by abusing alcohol, and in fact, I would like to open this for discussion, because I would like panelists to comment, because your presentation it's sort of like links directly with Mrs. presentation, and also generally to what is happening in our families. You find that a woman is promoted at home, she is now earning more than me. And because she's earning more than me, I feel like the only way to assert my authority is through violence and through being abusive, maybe psychologically, verbally, and some even go to the extreme extent of being physically abusive just to assert authority. I'm going to open just for a moment for comments from panelists, and general members who are participants can please put their comments on the chat as well as on the Q&A if there's a question.
Okay, thank you very much. From the two speakers that just presented, I have a question. I just want to know what is normally the problem when my husband will be celebrated by the world, but we are not able to see what they are celebrating in the family. Can Mrs. Nisi please respond to this question? Thank you.
Can you expand so that, can you just elaborate so that you find that me, I'm celebrated by the world, but at home, I am not celebrated. If you can just expand so that the panelists can.
Yeah, there is sometimes you find that women outside, when they want to voice their issues from their own families or from their own marriages, will come to this man, but the woman that belongs to this man cannot see that in the marriage or in the family. It's only women from outside that find solace in this man. That is my question.
I hear you. I hear you. No, I think the question is valid. I think to simplify it, outside the world sees a good man that they can come to and speak to and confide. But at home, the man is actually different. The man is not what he appears to be in the world. At home is a lion. I will start with Mrs. Nisi and then go to Ubab Ngoman.
Wow. What a question. But it's a valid question, because this is exactly what we sit with. I mean, I've sat with cases like that so many times in therapy. And I think most of the time I realize that it's the condition is mainly a personality related condition, and obviously we don't really go around throwing out these personality or these labels. I'm definitely not a fan of doing that, but there are certain personalities that thrive from public recognition, and in that sense, this is what they use to build their ego. Okay, so when their ego is built and when it feels like, you know, the public has recognized me and has actually upholded me in a certain state, I can go home and then be myself. So I don't have to pretend. So outside, it's more of a facade. It's the upkeep of, you know, I want people to believe me as this person so that I can be accepted. Because if they know the real me, if they know that I actually beat my wife up and I swear to my children and, you know, I'm unengaged at home, I might be rejected by society. So they thrive from the social acceptance, but then they do not mind with regards to at home being there and being abusive to the people that they are close to, because these people, they don't have a choice. They have to accept me anyway. And then there's a belief that they will never reject me, so I can do whatever I want with them because they don't have any other place to go. And in most cases like this, you find the wife is actually a dependent. You find the wife is unemployed, and the wife and the children are so dependent on this husband that they in fact don't have a choice, and they don't have a way out except to stay and actually accept this kind of behavior. So usually we do see it in personality disorders. Like I said, I'm not really much for labels, but we see it in a lot of personality disorders. I won't mention which one in case you are one of the people that are listening and then your wife tells you tomorrow that you are like the psychologist said. So I'm not going to mention any, but yes, it's very common.
Okay, Bab Ngoman.
Thanks, Brother Simon. Yeah. There's something called men bashing. So to avoid that, because I'm an activist in the men's sector, I will say we need to look into the problem as either a man or a woman doing that, because you may find that, we must not suppress the fact that men sometimes are also victims. You see, it may not be a majority of them, but that 1% or 0.5% is also there. And I think it's normal for people to try and cover their tracks. If you are abusive at home, you will not want the society to know you as abusive. Therefore, you will want the society to know you as some goody man. Then you will try to act in a community as that good person. It's a normal way of people just trying to cover their track, know who they are. That is why then we encourage people to speak up or to speak out, be it women or men. If you are experiencing any form of emotional, financial, or even physical abuse, you need to tell someone. And you tell someone with the aim of protecting yourself. Because other people or other women, they will tell you, but they will say it's between me and you.
Yeah.
So it's difficult for you to do anything about that, So people must speak up and with the purpose of trying to get help and pulling out from that abusive environment. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, no, I think one of the difficult things is that when you speak with someone and it says between me and you, and you don't know how you take that thing forward. Like you said, Mr. Ngomane, when they speak, they must speak with an intention of wanting to get help. And the privacy and confidentiality between the two, when an issue is raised and you know that this is gender-based violence, someone is being exploited, is being abused physically, emotionally, psychologically, or otherwise, and you are being told, I'm telling this thing in confidence. Yesterday, he beats me up, or yesterday, I was actually verbally abused to the extent that I broke down and cried. And I'm really not okay. I'm not okay. The situation at home is very toxic. But I'm just telling you because I'm venting, but please don't take it out. Don't tell the person that is doing this, because he's going to abuse me more. Or let's say vice versa, it's the man that is experiencing that verbal abuse. My wife always makes a joke. She says, if I'm beating you up, you must go to the police station and go and report the case. Knowing that if I'm being, let's say she had the physical power to abuse me physically, I'll be scared to go to the police station for fear of being ridiculed by the police, who might call each other and say, please come, I can't hear your statement. You said your wife did what to you? And calling other policemen to come closer. So I think I like the suggestion of men talking to other men, and at those men's forum, I think we are going to link up permanently with this men's forum in Gauteng, where men can talk openly, and also how we confront the issue of patriarchal society being broken down, and that women can be equal with us in a lot of respects, and that we need to accept that. It doesn't mean that you are not the head of the family, but the head without the neck is a problem. Yes, Kutlwano?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on what you're saying. I think Mr. Ngomane, okay, on what he said. Listen, we have to look at family situations holistically. In most instances, you realize that these performances that men engage in, where they're abusive at home, and then out there they feel accepted, and therefore they are best. They actually are the best kind of husband or the best kind of father to the public. You find that also at home, the situation, the environment actually induces the abuse or promotes the abuse. So in situations like that, we look at the family holistically. You find that maybe when he's home, he's disrespected, and when he's home, he feels belittled, or when he's home, he's also emotionally abused, and how he retaliates then is by becoming aggressive and so it's definitely not cut and dry for each and every male person. It's like there are certain situations or certain circumstances where, yes, this is purely a personality thing, and then there are certain circumstances where, my goodness, this is actually instigated and it's maintained by behaviors in the system. So you find that the system in itself is just dysfunctional, and the person or the male has no other way but to show the public eye his perfect self, because he doesn't get to do that in his family. And I think vice versa. I think that the question now is about males, and that's why we focus there, and that's our focal point for now. But it happens that females, women, wives can also be perfect in the public eye and then be monsters at home. So these things happen, and that's why I say it's the holistic approach that's important when it comes to situations like this.
Safunda namhlanje. I think without wasting time, I will hand over to the next facilitators, Mr. Sitole and Mr. Mngomezulu, can you please, guys, take over?
No, thanks, Mr. Sitole and Mr. Ndubuya. The next speaker will be talking to issues of personality types and their impact on relationships and marriages. The speaker is Mr. Tsietsi Telite. He's currently a senior specialist coaching Time to Think, and is an Enneagram practitioner with AXA. He was a senior manager in the office of the AG and corporate office deputy assistant general between the year 2008 and 2016. He was in the office of the Premier in KwaZulu-Natal, and he served between 2001 and 2007 in various capacities, including being an acting DDG for public service and transformation. He was a student leader in his heyday. He is also currently serving as a member of the Council of the University of Venda, serving as a member of the Education and the Risk and Audit Committees at the University Council. He holds a Master of Administration degree with the University of Cape Town. Without wasting time, take over, Mr. Telly.
Thank you very much, Baba Mngomezulu. Greetings, everyone in the platform. It's a bit challenging to come in at this point when more educated, more enlightened people on the matter have said quite a lot and questions have been asked. Let me also, before I even start, just announce this point that yes, my wife is in the platform, but we're sitting miles apart. She is sitting in East London and I'm sitting in Tshwane in Gauteng. So we're not going to be sharing any caucus positions here. So if she asks me questions, it's not questions that I would have indicated to her that she needs to ask. But mine today is to just zoom in very briefly, looking at our time, on the issue of how do personalities and our personality types affect relationships. How do these affect how we do things as individuals and as individuals belonging to those circles called relationships, be it marriage, be it ubujola, if you want to call it that, and any other relationships. I want to start this by quoting from Professor David Daniels, may his soul rest in peace. He says, I quote, "There is nothing more important than self-awareness and self-understanding to bring peace and compassion to our relationships." In the Enneagram practice field, we say, then what is it that is required of us to ensure that self-awareness, to ensure that self-understanding? It is required of us, we say, to do regular self-introspection of ourselves. It is required of us to open our hearts, first to ourselves and to the next person. And it is required of us, very importantly, our psychologist has raised this point, to allow ourselves to be vulnerable. Same as Kuluma earlier on through the question and answer session, I picked up something there that says, Tina, we don't cry. Because Isilungu says tigers don't cry. You're talking or you're listening right now, ladies and gentlemen, to someone who's lost his first wife in 2001. May her soul rest in peace. And I can tell you now, I cried when I lost her. Because I know deep down within me, I am not a tiger. So I will not follow that which says tigers don't cry, because I'm not one of them. Let's go back to our topic. We need to understand each other in relationships. Because when we understand each other, we then are opening ways and more ways for us to love each other more. And that understanding of each other allows us to live more fully, and it allows us to express more affection towards the next person, my partner in the relationship. When it comes to these personalities we're talking about, there are certain questions that we always ask ourselves, publicly or sometimes privately in our own little corners. Bathi ekhaya nangu umntaka musbanibani simbonile wena, or your friends ask you about these things, or you talk about them, you then ask yourself, what personality type should I marry? What personality type gets along well with what type? And what personality type would I, as would say it, be most compatible with? David Daniels has got a response to that. And here, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, I emphasize response, not answers. Because in this space that I operate in, when we ask people questions or when we ask ourselves questions, we don't expect answers. We expect responses. I'm being technical deliberately. We expect responses more than answers. Why responses and not answers? Because answers can be right and they can be wrong. And when we talk about responses, we talk about that which you feel within you, that which you think for yourself, and that which you want to say. And the response from David Daniels here to some of those questions is: two open-hearted, receptive beings, irrespective of which type they belong to, those people will get along best, and they will have the best chance at a successful marriage, at a successful partnership, or a relationship of any kind. All you need as a basis is be open-hearted, be receptive to each other. Let's do a quick reality check as we go into this subject of personalities. Reality says anyone and everybody can have a relationship with any personality type. What you need is you know the type that you're getting into a relationship with, know the level of health of the person you're getting into a relationship with, and understand the instincts of the person you're getting into a relationship with. Once you've done that, you will then have more insight and more understanding of that person. And that, for the Enneagram practitioner in me, is a recipe for tolerance and is a recipe for acceptance of the next person. Once you tolerate your partner, once you accept your partner, then you're on the road towards an enhanced and a better relationship. And I'm going to say it here today. My wife, when we get into some form of argument, she always says and reminds me, you know me, ukuthi ndizenza kanje izinto. And when she's saying that, she's sending me a message that says, this is who I am. This is who you understand me to be. Are you in a position to tolerate me? Are you in a position to accept me for who I am? The Enneagram Institute also says to us, please understand that no pairing of any personality type is particularly blessed, and no pairing is particularly doomed. You can take any personality types, bring them together, pair them together. None is going to be particularly blessed and none is going to be particularly doomed. What you need is you need to make sure that your level of integration in the partnership is high. And once that level is high, it will spiral the relationship into greater and, more importantly, positive heights. Every person, the Enneagram Institute tells us, has got all 9 personality types within them. The difference is each one of us resonate with one predominant type. Now, that predominant type is the one that we use to say, this is the personality that I am, but essentially, we hold within us and we have traits of all 9 personality types. Why is it important for us to understand this Enneagram personality type phenomenon? It is important because once we comprehend ourselves, once we understand who we are, we then are in a better position to self-evaluate and self-assess. And we're in a better position to focus on what is it that we need to do about ourselves first, before we move on to say what do we do about our partners and ourselves within that particular partnership. When we understand our personality types, we are in a better position to figure out that personality. And when I understand my personality, I will be in a better position to know which strengths do I hold, which strengths does my partner hold. And when in that position, I then know how do we jointly leverage and build on those strengths. When I understand my Enneagram profile, I know which weaknesses I have, which weaknesses my partner holds, and we find a way of how do we improve and make better of those challenging situations within ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, Enneagram and understanding these personality types makes us aware or more aware of how we can achieve our goals as a partnership and which goals we should be setting ourselves focus on. What are some of the benefits of this Enneagram personality engagement that we're looking at? When I know my personality type, when I know the personality of my partner, my spouse, my wife, my girlfriend, my boyfriend, whoever I'm in the relationship with, I will then develop mutual understanding with her. We develop jointly that understanding that says, as a couple, this is who we are. And when we understand each other, and we have those benefits, we then find greater meaning and connection between and amongst ourselves. We find that soulful resident within ourselves, and we become aware of who that person is. And when we know our personality types and understand each other, we get a better way of learning and managing our own basic emotional postures. And when you do that, you can easily calm your stress reactions or manage them. And it is very possible and easy for you to empathize with your partner when you understand them and their personality types. You know their strengths, you know their weaknesses, and you know what you need to do to support them, to get them to where they're supposed to be or they should be, to get this relationship growing and moving to where it's supposed to move to. Now, having said all this and linking it to where we're coming or we're supposed to be going to, how does all this link to managing mental health within relationships? We need to know and understand that each personality type has got a healthy and an unhealthy side to themselves. We spoke about strengths and weaknesses earlier. We are now saying there's a healthy side and there's an unhealthy side to any personality type. When you understand those pitfalls in that personality type, you then are in a better position to manage them and to sanitize yourself against being affected negatively by those issues within that personality type. You understand the pitfalls of your partner, and when you understand those pitfalls, you work on improving your tolerance levels towards him or her, and you accept them for who they are. You can use your personality type to improve your wellness and your mental wellness by doing, amongst other things. And please note, this is not an exhaustive proposal or list. It's just a few of those things you can do. Understand the three major identifiers of why you function the way you function as that personality type. And these identifiers are: what is the key motivation that drives you to do things? Secondly, what are your basic desires? And thirdly, what are your fears? Our psychologists spoke to the issue of fears, and we got into some depth about that. Those fears sometimes cause us to react in ways which we later regret and say, I shouldn't have done that. But when you do your own introspection in your little corner again, you then say, I was scared that if I didn't do that, my ego was going down the drain. Egos are very influential in these things. So we're basically saying use your personality type to improve your mental wellness by understanding these three major identifiers: your motivation, your basic desires, and your fears. Now, you need to learn to understand and accept the identifiers of your partner as well. What motivates him or her to do what they are doing? What is the basic desire in them, and what fears are they harboring deep within themselves? Because when you understand and accept those identifiers, you're in a better position to co-manage with the partner those identifiers, and when you manage them, you are enhancing and improving the relationship. It will continue to grow and grow and grow forever and ever. Now, we're saying these issues and areas that I've just mentioned, these are, for me, things that are inherent components of psychological safety in relationships and emotional stability in relationships. And I sometimes call them exotic spices for mental nutrition, and I call them oxidized water for evergreen fields of passion. We have an opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to leverage these things to our advantage. And how can we do that? I'm looking at my time, and I promise you this is my second last slide. Now, how can we leverage on those things and leverage to our advantage some of the things we need to do? We need to enhance and create and develop that which we call a thinking environment within the partnership. Let's create time to think. Let's be thinking partners to each other. For me, I need to elevate the power of positivity and appreciation of my partner. I need to process her emotions. I need to caress and massage her feelings. I need to find space and time to scan my environment. And when I scan my environment, I need to look at what is the current, or what are the current threats to my relationship and my partnership, and what are the rewards that are there in that partnership. Once I've asked that question, I need to then ask myself, how do I respond to those threats? Do I fight them? Do I run away from them? Or do I just sit quietly and torture myself? The response to this is, I need to tailor my responses to fit within, and I need to enhance my unique situation as an individual component of the relationship, as an individual component of the partnership. And this I do because I want to contribute positively to influence the interests of myself and my partner in the relationship. It is very important. And it is very important that you understand your personality, you understand your partner's personality, because if you don't have that as a basis, you then are missing out on something very critical, because at the end of it all, we are saying the future of the partnership will be what the individual components of that partnership make it to be. One thing important and one thing critical as we talk about understanding our own personalities and personalities of our partners our spouses, our boyfriends and girlfriends, our stakeholders in the relationships, is that we need to have that critical understanding. If we don't have that critical understanding of who am I, what am I about, what am I about in this relationship, what am I about in relation to my partner, if we don't have that understanding, then we're missing out a very critical and important element that will make a solid base and foundation for us to grow and grow our relationship. As I move off the platform, Mabungumane and our esteemed participants and guests, this journey will only be realized and fulfilled when I play my part, when you play your part, when we jointly play our respective roles and be honest and critical positively of each other, and also make it our responsibility to accept and recognize that in this world we are not perfect. We are going to make mistakes. What is very important is, how do I accept that mistake first? How do I rise back up from having fallen, dust myself off, and amend which that I have done that is not right and correct? Ladies and gentlemen, it was only a brief touch on what this whole Enneagram personality type thing is all about. We can talk and talk and talk more about this. Let's get those conversations going. That's what is important. Let's make the mistakes. Let's learn from them, and let us dust ourselves off and correct that which needs to be corrected. Thank you very much for the time, and I will open myself up for inputs, comments, questions, and I will respond to those which I am able to respond to. I thank you.
Wow. Tsietsi, what a powerful session. You know, I am impressed by your passion as you were taking us through the entire presentation. It was well done. It's just that we cannot, I'm uploading you from where I'm sitting. Powerful session. I like your closing statement where you said the journey of any relationship will be realized when we all play our respective role honestly in those relationships. So that's powerful. I also like the fact that you are saying we are powerful, we've got different personalities as much as there are personality types that dominate us. It was, I'm speechless. I am reflecting in quite a number of ways. I'm exposed in quite a number of ways. I'm empowered in certain area of my life. But yeah, it was very, very powerful. It was very powerful. So before maybe I ask, we go through other questions, I just want to ask this particular question.
Sorry, Mr. Stolen. The next speaker asked that, can she present immediately because she's pressed for time, and then we'll go to questions after she has presented.
Okay, not a problem. All right. So Mr. Tsietsi, thank you so much. We'll come back to your question. Please don't run away. We still need you here. There are a lot of responses that we'll expect from you. So ladies and gentlemen, we will be moving along. And the next topic that we'll be looking at is spirituality and mental health. And you agree with me that as much as we are looking at things from the mental side of it, but we are also spiritual beings. So we are at a stage where we'll be combining the two, spirituality and mental health. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will be presenting to you a CEO. I like her motto, and her motto is that bloom where you are planted for his glory and the next generation. I find that very, very powerful. The person I'm going to introduce to you is a global businesswoman. She is an independent business consultant. She has achieved quite a number of awards. If I can mention a few, she got an award as a global influential speaker, influential woman of the year, harness manufacturer of the year, presidential excellence award. That is just to mention the few. She features in lot of radio station, Radio Pulpit, and a lot of other radio and TV stations. She's also featured in some newspapers and magazines. She is an author. She is a marriage counselor. If I can give you a little bit of her education and credentials, she's got a master's in international business, a master's degree in business administration, a postgraduate in business management, and three diplomas in business management, personal management, and financial management. If I can just share with you her social responsibilities, she owns a few foundations. The first one is business mentoring. The second one is Titus to Women Foundation. And the third one is Wives Talk. And the other one is Widows and Divorce Conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce to you a powerful woman of God and a powerful business woman. We call her Cools. So allow us, ladies and gentlemen, to allow Cools to take over the stage. Cools, you can have the platform to yourself and empower us.
Greetings to the family, greetings to the team, greetings to the board of directors, greetings to my fellow panelists today, and I am greeting you in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Let me also apologize that I had to interact with the program. I am sitting here as well. I will be going in as a speaker again in the next 45 minutes. So that is why I had to ask that. I'm timing myself. I am not going to be long because I listened from the beginning, and it seems like there are some synergies on everything that has been spoken about. All that I'm going to try and do now is to bring in the spiritual element of this that we are talking about today. I must say that this is one topic that we normally shy away from because we believe that, or rather we have this belief that if you are able to say that mentally something is wrong about me, people will be thinking and taking you as a weak person. But let me open with the scripture that we all know, Romans chapter 12 from verse 1 to 2. So, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because all he has done for you. Let them be a living holy sacrifice, the kind you will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship him. But then now verse 2 says, do not copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. And that's where now mental health comes in. And then it says, then you will learn to know God's will for you which is good and pleasing and perfect. I'm going to just like touch a little bit and say that there is this notion that normally says that spirituality and mental health are not the same thing, whereas this is the same thing. What we need to do, we need to let it work together. I will just point out on something and say that, of course, the spirituality in terms of the church, we provide the sense of security and social structure, and those beliefs can be strong in the society. But at the end of the day, let us not then leave the professional side of it aside. I will always say to people and say that the fact that God has said in Psalms 139, I have created you in my image. Therefore, He has wonderfully created us. However, there are also these aspects that are there that God has formed. The fact that we are going to a doctor who is a medical doctor, what is then stopping us not going to go and consult about our mental wellness? So what is important for us now, where the spiritual bodies are supposed to come in, is that we need to understand that although we are the first point of contact in terms of the well-being of the family, we also need to understand that we are also not an expert in a particular part, which is your professionalism when it comes to psychologists. Because if I will want to take up and I want to counsel a person as a spiritual person, rather maybe a pastor, and I do not have an understanding and a knowledge about that, what am I doing? I am not helping this person. So it is important to know that although we have been tasked to be shepherds for the children of God, we also need to have more wisdom for us to be able to guide them, that they are able to attend to professionalism. So what am I saying? I'm saying, although faith-based organizations and spiritual-based organizations are a crucial resource, but let us also provide that guidance and that understanding and the knowledge and say to our congregation, it doesn't just end here by prayer. As much as you pray and then you go and look for a job, as well as for your spiritual well-being, it is important that as you pray, consult the relevant bodies that are going to help you nurture your mind in a way that you are able to do. And we need to also try and help our congregants with a capacity by saying to them, if you go and consult a psychologist, it doesn't mean that you are weak, but basically it means that you love yourself. So these two, they go hand in hand, as well as, let me also make an example, there's a fivefold ministry. And again, there is, for the church to function, you'll find that there's the worship team, there's the preacher, there are the ushers, there are those that take offering. It's in the same line as this. So the spiritual bodies or the faith-based organizations are supposed to get to a point of saying, I can encourage you to go and consult. So basically that's where I am just gonna be stopping at right now, such that we can open for the question and answer whilst I am still here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cruz. That was very, very powerful. Mr. Nduguya, I request you to check the chat box for us and monitor some questions for us. Yeah, Cruz, what you are saying is very important. We sometimes really find it difficult, and sometimes we don't see it fit that we can tell people that they can consult. We think that that is not correct. We drive the issue of faith. But I'm happy that you landed it beautifully today to make us aware that as much as we have faith, there are issues in life that can be resolved in the absence of presence of faith. Sometimes we must advise our people to go consult. So thank you. That was very, very powerful. Tsietsi, I'm not sure if you also want to make a comment around this one. Simon, do you have any specific question from the chat box that Koos might have to give it an attention? Okay, Tsietsi, I'm recognizing you.
If I may come in, Jobe, thank you very much for this. There's a question I saw on the chat box about talking to the different personality types. My response would be we would be here until Monday. but what I could say is that we need to make space and time to delve deeper into these. We need to. I can avail myself to say. Simon said earlier on that we're going to post our, when we're going to avail our contact details, I would avail those. Please feel free to link up with me via email, via WhatsApp, and all these many other platforms that are there, and then we'll talk into those very, very deeply. I can give you a quick response in relation to my own personality type number 1, which is the strict perfectionist. And that's one of the things that makes me fight or argue with my dear wife day in, day out, because I am that person that wants to do things by the book and that wants to do things like, as the concept says, let them come out perfect. If you forget and leave out the comma in that sentence, I make a fuss out of it. Not because I love to make a fuss, because that perfectionist in me comes out automatically. But bottom line is, dwelling into all 9 of them would take us a day and a half. I'm not being nasty, Jobe. Thank you very much.
So I've got one question that I wanted to ask. Will I be correct then to say that we are wrong when we say there's a personality clash? It is personality misunderstanding. Because where we say that there's a clash of personalities here, based on what we have learned, you really iterated that it's integration of personalities. It's me understanding my personality. It's also about me understanding my wife's personality and be aware of her strength and her weakness and my weakness. But we integrate the positive side of it so that we can make the relationship better. So just clarify that. What is your comment on the fact that there's a personality clash? Is there something like that?
I love the part, Jobe, where you say personality misunderstanding. Because when I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, my personality clashes with yours, I'm then disputing the fact that in every one of us, traits of all those 9 personality types reside. But then there's one that is dominant or predominating the others. Now, if I don't understand and accept your personality, then there's going to be the so-called personality clashes. What is critical and important is for me to say, sit down with me, walk with me, and allow me to walk with you as well. Let me understand where you're coming from. Let me understand what your personality type is. What are your fears as a person? What makes you want to run away? What are your motivations? Remember those identifiers we spoke about. Once I understand your identifiers, I will not clash with you. I will understand. I don't know what muted me there, sorry.
Okay.
Once we identify those 3 identifiers and accept and understand them, we'll then jointly in the partnership say, how do we work around these things so that jointly we then become compatible with each other. And we are compatible as human beings. All we need is that let's get to understand and accept each other. It's not easy. It's a huge challenge. It's a huge challenge. And you're bringing me, Jobe, sorry for taking this much time now you're now forcing me to bring in the other cap that I wear, that of being an integral coach. The coach in me says, once you talk and when you talk to somebody and they're talking to you, you're engaging in that conversation. And that's what we call it in the coaching space. We have a conversation. We have a conversation to understand each other. The danger is when I'm engaging with you, and when you are talking to me, I'm listening to you, and I'm listening to you because I want to respond to what you're saying. I'm not listening to you because I want to understand where you're going. As soon as you start listening to understand, then the situation becomes better. Let me leave it at that, Joe, before I move too much. Thank you.
Yeah. No, before we take it to the questions, if Mr. Ndubuya has, I've got this one last question. One interesting that you said is that there's a health side of each personality type. And when you are on that health side, you are able to empathize with your partner, how you view your partner. You view your partner from an empathetic state. What is it that one can do to be grounded on his or her health side? Because when you're on your health side, that's when you deal better with your partner. So how can one keep himself grounded from that health side?
There's something called self-observation in the Enneagram space and in the coaching space. You observe and you identify that health side. You then want to internalize this. You do consistent practice. Give yourself a practice of any nature that you will do when you wake up at 5 in the morning, or you will do when you go before you go to bed at night. You can ask your partner to be the one who assists you by reminding you you've got a practice to do. And when you do, you identify that practice for yourself, something that is easy to do, but something that will make you internalize those things. Once you've internalized them, they become yours. You do them without even thinking. They become part of your DNA, as we say. But also very important, I want to go to the unhealthy part, Jobe, if you allow me. Those unhealthy parts, you also do some exercises to cleanse yourself of them. When you're feeling unhealthy, we go to see a doctor. They prescribe medication, they prescribe antibiotics, and the doctor will say to you, finish this set of antibiotics. Even if you feel that you're healthy, finish them. Same thing we do here. Get to that practice every day or consistently until you can know and you see that it comes naturally. You don't even have to think about it anymore. I hope I've responded to your question.
Desi, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, Mr. Ndubuya.
Okay.
Mr. Ndubuya, do we have some question from the chat function?
Yeah, we had, in fact, we had, in fact, I asked a question to Koos and she replied already, is that I wish, my wish is to have therapists who are Christians to have both approaches, the spiritual approach as well as the professional approach in the churches. And she said that, you know, and this is what we need to promote when doing career guidance in our churches. Because a human being is a tripartite, is a spirit being. He has a soul and lives in a body. So you need to be able to have those tripartite approaches. And she replied. And the other thing is that there are some pastors who are adamant that only prayer answers every challenge. And I wanted her to comment, and I think by now she must be already on the platform. Oh, you're still here? Okay.
Yeah, I have about 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let me just quickly touch on that one. It's one of the elements, because if we as the pastors are able to speak out about this kind of a career and not sort of like neglect it, because currently we have many that are in church. In our churches, we have many. Let's involve them. Because what we do now, we have taken this part of counseling and we are putting it into, I might sound controversial right now, but we normally would put it into the pastor's office. But as the pastors and the leaders, let us then involve and say, if we have psychologists as members, let's involve them as part of the counseling team, especially for marriage counseling. Let's involve the psychologists, because in that way they will be able to combine the Bible and the theory. In that way, now you are feeding the mind with theory and the Bible. Hence, I said earlier on to say it works hand in hand. But what we do is that there is an experience and the expect side of things that we require as the body of Christ from the theoretical part of things. The similarly thing that I go to the doctor when I feel I have a pain, then the doctor gives me painkillers. It's the same thing as, with mental health. Let's promote it and not make it as something that is taboo. And that is why now when you look at research, there is a high number of Christians that are depressed because they don't know how to deal with it. They are afraid to go and approach professional psychologists because they believe that they are not supposed to go there. Now, again, you look at the pastor himself, he is also having his own issues. His own issues. So let us, as the faith-based organization, start now to then say, and the worst part is just because one doesn't have time, the worst part is that COVID has increased this element of depression amongst Christians. Because we believe that I only have to pray. No. You need a professional psychologist, psychiatrist to help you with what you are going through for you to be able. The word says, let your mind be transformed and be renewed. How do you do that? Your mind must be in the right state of mind. I'll pause there.
Okay, maybe before you go, Mkaya, before you go, sorry, Mr. Stolle, is that I spoke to one pastor, and he said a very powerful statement. He said, Mr. Ndukuya, the problem, we as pastors are being viewed as Superman, that we can handle any problem. And that is why you find that some pastors commit suicide because they cannot, they don't have any other person to go to because they feel like people might say, because you are a pastor, you need to be able to address these things. And he even suggested, and this is something that we need to work on, he even suggested that we need to have a group of therapists and we need to go to churches and say to pastors, here is a group of therapists in each and every province that you can go to. These have been vetted by MPN, and you can go them when you feel like you have to address, you need help. Because you are saying, as a man, if my family, I cannot provide for my family, I get affected. And I get really frustrated. I will pray and I'll pray, but I need professional help so that I can be in the right state of mind. And he said, please, if you can form these particular structures, we'll definitely, appreciate, and we can join in droves and we can promote it amongst the leadership of the churches.
I think that is very critical. Hence, I said that point to say. But again, let me just go back a step back. We are the one who have created ourselves to have the superpower. And that is where we need to start from. If a pastor can stand up and say, look, if you've got a challenge with your mental health, it is not only prayer that is going to help you, but it also includes the theoretical part of things. We've got psychologists, we've got psychiatrists. The congregants and the people in the community will then now get to know to say, I don't just need to go to the pastor. I need to then, there are people that are there. And these are the structures that are need to be formed in churches that will then also alleviate this pressure that is there towards the pastors. We become the go-to because that's what we have portrayed ourselves to be. It's even like in the family. If the husband or the father has portrayed himself to be the go-to, all the children will go to the father and they will not go to the mother. And because the father now has already created this, then you are now saying, if I don't do this, I am failing my children. Whereas basically you are failing your children because you're not being honest to yourself, and that this one I cannot do, but the wife can do. So that's where we need to start. We need to start there first by being honest to ourselves in saying, we are not a know-it-all. We are not Superman. There are things that we cannot do. And that is why now going back to the Bible, Jesus Christ had to select. He started from 72. He knew what the 72 would do. He casted it down to 12. The 12, he knew each one of them what they would do. He drew it down now to 3. He knew that these 3, there are things that they can do. So it is important that we have to understand that we are not a know-it-all. There are structures, and these structures were created by God himself. The fact that this is a career, it has been created by God himself. Why don't you allow it and bring it into the body of Christ, and we operate together as the body of Christ?
No, thank you.
That's very, very powerful. Me and Simon will repent. We transforming from today. We are going to stop. We are going to stop to be Superman. We are on a serious note, profound stuff that you have shared with us. What I'm taking with you is to go back to the children of God and promote mental health. Thank you very much for such an empowering session. Thank you very much. Mr. Simon Duguya, my chairperson, I'm going to hand over to you.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. I think for now, we're going to ask Mrs. Ndukuya to take the floor with regards to the next sessions that we are going to have as agreed to by the board. If Mrs. Ndukuya, you can come in.
Good afternoon, participants, and good afternoon, panelists. Thank you very much for the presentations that we have so far received, and we are very grateful for the time that you made to be part of this seminar. My job is very easy. It's just to indicate that as MPN, we have planned other seminars, and we currently have 2 topics. The one is the one that deals with blended families. The date for this one is the 22nd of October. This year, we will be happy to have you again. I believe that when we are still young, we do not wish or want to be in blended families, but life will throw you curveballs and you might find yourself in these kind of relationships. There are so many challenges that people go through. You find that there will be a rivalry amongst the stepchildren. You find that there's rivalry amongst the step-parent and the children. There will be comparison. Remember, these people are from other relationships. They will compare the dad with the stepdad, or the mom with this stepmom. There will be feeling of inadequacy because they perceive they are not accepted in this family. So I think we really will benefit if we attend this. And the other topic that we have, which we still do not have a date for, is the Concord ruling on cohabiting that just recently happened in favor of the woman. I will stop there. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Over to you.
No, thank you. I think the 2 topics are very critical. Most South Africans live in blended families, and the issue is, how do you navigate blended families? It's a big one. It affects marriages. It makes couples to fight, and that's a big one. The one on the Concord ruling regarding cohabitation, maybe those who do not know, one woman, after a boyfriend that they were living together with, after the boyfriend, or in inverted commas, husband informally passed away, the family kicked the woman out of the house, and they said, you don't deserve anything, and you don't deserve anything because you guys were not married, both customarily and in terms of this of the law, civil law. And they kicked that woman out, and she took the matter to court, and it went up to the Constitutional Court. What the Constitutional Court has ruled now is that if you can prove that you were cohabiting with this person for a number of years, whatever investments that have been made, whatever things that assets that you have accumulated, the woman will be entitled to the estate of the deceased. So we'll get lawyers and judge and to unpack for us that particular judgment, and what does it mean? Because as I know, I think Labaningba keep it, and now they've given people who are keeping the right to assets in terms of the court ruling. So we want to unpack that. the last thing on my side is just to, before I thank everybody, is that at the moment, Marriage Powerhouse has this particular CD or recording that we have made on communication in marriage. And we had, I think there are two key speakers, Mr. Stole, who spoke about how do we communicate in a marriage. I think after today, you have got a lot of pointers. Number two, what are the things that couples fear to talk about in marriage? You are scared to speak to your partner about a particular thing. What are those things and how to overcome it? That particular recording, if you go to iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, if you go to iTunes and type communication in marriage, you will get it. You can download it for free. There's another one that is coming, which is called Is South Africa Becoming a Cohabitating Society? Which we've already recorded. It's gonna come out also on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and all the other channels. You can download it for free, and please tell other people to download. And this one as well, we'll see whether we can be able to record it and edit it and come up with it so that it can assist even some people that didn't come, to record it and make sure that we make it available for people to get help. So that those are the announcements that I wanted to make. And also I put there that if you want to donate anything to MPN, we are properly registered NPO with the Department of Social Development. We are also registered at SARS for tax exemption. If you donate anything more than, let's say 200 Rand, we'll give you what is called a Section 18A letter, so that you can be exempt from the tax from what you have donated to MPN. So thank you so much. I just want to thank the panelists. Thank you so much. I know Dr. Makubela couldn't join. She had communication challenges from University of Mpumalanga. It means we might have one seminar where she unpacks femicide within intimate relationships and toxic masculinity. It means we might have a seminar, a mini seminar where she unpacks this particular topic, because we don't want our audience and the people that support this cause to miss out. And thank you. I want to thank Mr. Telite, my former student leader. I want to thank you for agreeing to be part. I want to thank Ukuls in absentia. Thank you so much for agreeing to share such insight. I want to thank Mrs. Smith. What a groundbreaking information that you have given us, as well as the rest of the public that joined. Thank you so much. Mshiga, thank you so much for sharing such a powerful perspective from the men's side, because we needed that perspective from the men's side. Thank you so much. I know that the department wants to work with Marriage Powerhouse going forward with respect to families, and this will assist us in making sure that we access a lot of families that need help. So thank you so much, speakers, and above all, thank you, colleagues and friends and people that have joined on this webinar. There is more that are still coming. Thank you so much for joining. We grow together, we learn together. And I think after today, we're not gonna be acting the same way we came into this seminar. Thank you so much. And may God richly bless you. And I would like to ask Mr. Stoller to just close this seminar with a prayer.
Okay, we are going to pray. Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you for your mercy. We thank you for your grace. We thank you, our Father, for trusting us with such a responsibility. We thank you, Lord. This was our effort for the day.
an effort of adding value to the society, to the community and your children. We believe, Father, that you have made the impact that you wanted this webinar to make today. As your children are going home right now, my Father and my God, we pray that you help them meditate on these things, because they are beautiful things. They are life-changing things. May they be transformed with this information. You said, in a way, my people perish because they lack knowledge. Father, you have dropped powerful knowledge today, and I will believe that your children are empowered. They will never be the same again. We give you all the praise and all the honor for making this webinar this success. We thank you, our Father, and we bless you in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you.